Happy Tuesday, everyone. This week I am going to continue in my quest to find the mangroves, and I'm going to do a little bit of work on this area because I planted a bunch of saplings and I let them grow. I kind of like the way that these two are kind of like echoing a sort of pattern. I could see connecting these two to the wall there at some point. But I also just want to harvest some wood so that I can, so that I can continue growing more cherry blossoms. And carry them on to the next area, sort of carry them on to the next sort of place. Carry them on to the next locality, the next location, the next localized onion, the next sort of participant in, reality. How is your reality? How is your positionality? How do you feel in general about your place in the world? Because sometimes people get a little bit sad or a little bit upset that things aren't quite the way that they want them to be, and that's okay. It's okay to have preferences. It's okay to have personal boundaries. It's okay to have personal ideas of what's like good enough or not good enough, or too little or too much or too far, right? Or too much work, right? But sometimes, you're in a situation where you need someone else's help, right? And sometimes you can't exactly choose how much help to get from somebody, If somebody helps you out of a sense of generosity, it only makes sense, that you accept what they're able to do. You can have standards, you can express those standards, but it's not really fair to try to leverage your power over someone in order to maintain that advantage, in order to impose, to force somebody to do something that they wanted to do for you anyway, out of the goodness of their heart, Totally unrelated, totally random. I don't even know why I'm thinking about this. I think I'm just confused, Other people to tell me what is true and what is not true, because I'm just so stupid and I don't know what's going on. Helpless and vulnerable, and I don't have any power at all. And when I say that, I get a very good sense of what kind of people I'm dealing with very quickly. And the punchline is, I actually do want to help. Even people, who need help but might use manipulation to try to get it, I actually want to help those people. Because the fact that someone thinks that they need to manipulate others in order to receive help, well, I think it's kind of sad. In fact, I don't just think it's kind of sad. It literally is pretty sad. I feel sorry for that kind of person. I really do. And I know it sounds extremely sarcastic the way I'm saying it. And, the only reason it sounds sarcastic is because it's also extremely funny to watch somebody who thinks that they have complete control over your situation and complete power over you to flail so hard the moment they realize that you won't submit to their narrative. It's extremely funny. And extremely sad at the same time. Isn't it strange how those two things often tend to exist? Tragedy and comedy, halves of the same coin. Two halves of the same board. Two grabs of the same groin, perhaps. There are many ways one can express this thought. I think William Shakespeare, the famous guy, said it best when he said, Beggars can't be choosers. But that's not to say, right? Whoever is helping someone, right? Whoever is helping someone out of the goodness of their heart is probably doing so, right? Because they actually want to help. And if one actually wants to help, then one will attempt, right, to meet someone's expectations, you know? It's just mind-numbingly transparent when those expectations are for submission and control, not anything physical and external to the world, you know? Because if I take a photo of a pan that I washed, one would think that if the goal was to establish a true standard to say, this is acceptable, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This way, we together can have a shared sense of reality and agree on what a clean pan is, right? The surface might be a little sticky, right? So is that the texture of the surface? I see the reflection of the pan, right? I see the way that the pan glimmers in the sunlight, and I captured it beautifully, you know? I think it's an art. I'm gonna put up photos of the pan, you know, over this little segment so you can see what I'm talking about. But I did a very good job. It makes me feel just a little sticky. Now, why does it feel just a little sticky? Is it because, you know, I cooked my potatoes in the pan for a month and a half without washing it once, and then cleaned it completely from that point on, you know, down to gleaming. And now there's just a layer of oil that is chemically bonded to the nonstick coating itself? Well, if you know anything about organic chemistry, you'll know that that shouldn't be possible. And the reason it shouldn't be possible is because nonstick coatings are made from something called fluorinated hydrocarbons. It's fluorinated plastic. It's carbon atoms chained to one another in a repeated configuration, and instead of being bonded to hydrogen atoms, they're bonded to fluorine atoms. It's a type of halogenation. And the carbon-fluorine bond is extremely stable. It has a very low, the two atoms really want to share electrons. They really want to be together. And so if you want to do traditional, what's called nucleophilic substitution. Now, you don't need to know what that means. All you need to know is that it means two things exchanging place. So if you have a chlorine atom on a carbon atom, you can introduce fluorine atoms, and the fluorine atoms will replace the chlorine and kick off the chlorine. Now, that process basically goes in a ladder. There are some things that will displace others, and some things that have nothing that will displace them. And fluorine basically has very little that will actually displace it. I think it's actually nothing that will displace it chemically. So the only forces at that point would be the only forces that would be able to hold something to the surface of the pan would be intermolecular forces, right? Intermolecular forces. Let's see. So nonpolar interactions, right? When candle wax or grease sticks to grease, right? Those two things. Right? Those two things stick together because there are extended and electrons are able to flow along between the bonds and displace one another and build up sort of regions of charge separation where there's more positive or more negative charge. And in one molecule, right, that wave of charge sort of creates an induced wave of charge in the neighboring atom. So everything kind of sticks together because waves of electron probability, right? Waves of probability distribution just align between these molecules. So that's what's going on when you have grease stuck to a pan. Okay? You would think that a non-stick pan wouldn't stick to anything, but that's not exactly true. It just means that chemically, nothing will polymerize to it. So when you use a soap, it should take everything off. Because the soap has a polar component and a non-polar component. Which is to say, it has a component that relies on those intermolecular forces of electron clouds and their displacement, and it has a component that relies on literal charge separation, like ionic charge separation. So think sodium chloride, right? Salt, chlorine. Now, sodium, right, Na+, chlorine, Cl-, there's a positive thing, there's a negative thing. Because they are opposites. They attract because they are so different from one another. So completely not the same. And water is a polar solvent. It's called polar because it has two poles. It has the oxygen atom, which hogs electrons, and it has the two hydrogen atoms, which do not hog electrons. In fact, they almost repel them. They're positively charged centers, and because the electron is what's called electronegative, and it is so strongly electronegative, it draws charge away from the hydrogen atoms. And because of its polarity, it's able to make ionic compounds dissolve within it. Soap, the non-polar component of the soap molecule. That's not what I meant to do. The non-polar component of the soap molecule and the polar component of the soap molecule do different things. So the non-polar component looks like grease to the atoms themselves, and so the atoms tend to dissolve within it. And the polar component likes to dissolve in water. So you get what's called a little micelle. And that little micelle is just those greasy, oily compounds surrounded by soap molecules, which then have this ionic character, and have this ionic group, and those ionic groups are clustered around the edge of the circle. And then the water, it doesn't dissolve, but it kind of suspends all of these soap molecules together. All of these micelles together, basically. So there's a blob of oil. And around the oil, there's positively and negatively charged groups. And those positively and negatively charged groups are then carried away by the water. So any non-polar interaction should be less favorable, because dissolving something in water releases energy. You disperse it, and therefore increase its entropy. And that is is one of the components of what drives all physical interactions in the universe. It's called Gibbs free energy. And what it means is there's a combination of the entropic component and the enthalpic component. Now, most people don't talk about empathy, and I think the reason they don't talk about enthalpy, not empathy, is that I think people are dumb. And the reason that they don't talk about it is because everybody seems to think that entropy is a force that we need to worry about because it will lead to the death of the universe, and eventually everything will just be low-level heat energy that spreads out to everything. Very smart people say this, apparently. But I don't understand why those very smart people haven't mentioned entropy in the conversation. Because entropy is the tendency towards order, towards overall state of, well, order. So a crystal, right? The formation of crystals is driven. Now, ignore the sign. Don't worry whether it's possible. But entropy. We wouldn't get crystals if entropy was part of the equation of Gibbs free energy. So one would think that if you washed a non-stick pan with soap and water, that the oil, right, through entropic value, would simply dissolve off the surface of the non-stick pan, because you're competing non-polar interaction against a non-polar interaction, and you have the ability to disperse the oil, right, to increase its entropy. So, unless the oil has puzzled perfectly into the exterior surface of this non-stick pan, and thereby increased its enthalpy, it doesn't make sense on a physical level that washing this pan should result in a pan that is sticky. It's extremely strange to me that the pan would still be sticky after washing it and soaking it 4 times in a row. It's amazing to me. Now it could simply be that it needs more scrubbing. It could simply be that it needs a stronger solvent. I've tried acetone, I've tried isopropyl alcohol, I've even tried glass cleaner because it's a base, and perhaps there's groups on the oil that can be given a charge, thereby making them easier to solubilize in water. And yet, the grease remains, that sticky feeling remains. And now I have to wonder, where is that sticky feeling coming from? And then I have to remember that on the surface of one's own hands are the oils that we secrete in order for our skin to remain moisturized. It's just our natural self-moisturizing. It's just our own bodies interacting with the material, interacting with the surface. Right? Otherwise, every time you grabbed a non-stick pan, it would just slide out of your hand immediately. What story do you choose to believe? That I'm simply unwilling to put a little bit of elbow grease into scrubbing the surface of the pan because I'm choosing to irritate someone I'm trying to help. Which is just just an incomprehensible motivation, in my opinion. It just doesn't make sense for someone to do that. It just doesn't make sense for someone to do that. When they have free will and a desire to help. So I choose to embrace my own perspective. That the pan, which gleams and shines on the surface, which one can grip without it immediately slipping off into infinity, is indeed clean. Now why would somebody tell me that something which is clean to a sanitary standard is not clean? Could it be to take control of my perception of reality in order to impose some sort of control on a world which is otherwise out of this particular control? Which sounds extremely sad. I feel very sorry for this person. I really do. And as I said, any sarcasm present in me only comes from the recognition of the humor of the situation. That in an attempt to assert control and dominance and to take over my perception of my reality, this person has made meeting their own needs much harder. For no reason, to no tangible benefit. All of the effort placed into the manipulation and gaslighting has resulted in what? Freedom from my presence. For the time being. Still chores that need to be. And I still have willingness and desire to help. Provided my reality is not assaulted. I think that to request, which is to say, extremely understandable that I would like my human rights respected. And one of my human rights is the right to my own perception. Now, is it extremely silly to worry this much about a pan? Yes, it is. Especially when one has the option of simply letting it go. One might argue, oh, it is a small thing. But it is not. It is an extremely small thing. And we've begun searching for these mangroves. We have cherry blossoms. Okay, we have a couple of tools. We have some oak logs. We have a bow. We have some pickaxes. We have some cooked potatoes, some uncooked potatoes. We have some rotten flesh, some iron, some copper. We have kelp. And this kelp is exactly what I was looking for. This is the goal that I was trying to achieve and which I did not voice. My behavior might seem kind of opaque. To that I say, one only means worry about not having the complete in the first does not trust the intentions of the actor. And it's silly not to trust them. Because I am literally nice. And it's just that simple. From my own perspective, it is. And then, I must remember that every single normal human being on this planet also has their own perspective. And that I must respect that simple fact of life. And to that I say, and things of that nature. You know? Because what else are we to say in this scenario? I think it's annoying. I think it's extremely irritating that every single person has their own perspective. It makes things so complicated. We get all confused. What does this person want? What does this person want? Does she really mean X when she says X? Or does she really mean Y? Or does she mean Z? We don't know. We can't read each other's minds. So why don't we simply change that? Why don't we engage in some kind of mutual, endless, right, incontrovertible, mind-reading sort of pact? You know, we could simply cast some sort of spell that allows us all to mutually read each other's minds. And then all conflict in the world would inevitably cease. Right? I think I'm right. And you will too. When we all share some sort of elaborate, multidimensional hive mind of interconnected minds. Yeah. So I don't know. That's just like one of the things I've been thinking about. Here we go. I don't know why that didn't work, but I will persevere nevertheless. Nevertheless. Definitely not the less. The less I barely know her. You know, the less I don't even know what is that. So let's get rid of this. potatoes, plenty of bamboo. I've reset my spawn point. I have 3 tree types. I have cobble. I have watermelon seeds. So I have multiple food sources. Enough room to make extra torches. 1 coal to cook something if I need to cook something real quick. So I have, through the course of this short 30-minute introduction, prepared for the journey and where it's available, visible. I have, the other thing I would like to bring wool with me, because it's colorful. It's got the right consistency. So I do want to add something to it, but where did I put that? There it is. There's some white wool, so I can take some color and add it to that. I'm going to use 2 wool there. Extra beds, even though right now I do have a bed. I'm hoping I'll run into some things that I can use to express my own mortality through, you guessed it, creating some colorful goop and applying it to wool in order to make something wonderful. Goop plus wool equals wonderfulness. Further I get away from spawn, the more likely I am to encounter those new items. I have accidentally just killed this tree, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish the job. That's an interesting recipe. I don't know what that is. I think it's a washboard, maybe? I grabbed, there's some leaf litter. Some leafy garbage. Vindictive? Am I vindictive? This is a good question. This is an extremely good question. This is one of the most important questions of our time. Is it vindictive to express oneself clearly, to state one's goals, motivations, and worldview with clarity and discernment? I would personally argue that is the polar opposite of vindictiveness. I believe that vindictiveness refusal to express oneself in favor of personal attacks and manipulation. Out of a fear that one will not be understood when truly expresses one's deepest desires. It's not bad to want complete control and submission from someone. What's bad to want look like some. So I have to make some hard decisions. Like, do I try to carry through this snowy biome in order to find what's on the other side, potentially freezing my petunias all the way off in the process? You know, also trying to avoid all of these strays, I think they are called. I like that tower, and I also really like the way that firefly bush looks in this context. You know, they're coming out with new contexts now. There's like more than 7 contexts out in the base game these days. Okay, I am definitely getting fired upon, and I am slowed, and it is cold, and I have hunger, and these strays, there are many of them. This is a challenging situation. You know, it is a difficult, schmifficult sort of a whatever, but I have options. And those options don't go away. Just because someone thinks that you are powerless and tells you that you are powerless. You, dear viewer, simply need to refuse the narrative that is presented to you by those who want control of you. Am I talking about anything specific? Actually not. Though that may surprise certain viewers. But if I make people uncomfortable, that does not mean that I am a bad person or that I am an incorrect person. The only thing that it means is that they are uncomfortable. And nothing else. There really isn't anything more to it than that. And it is okay to be uncomfortable. It is, in fact, entirely harmless to be uncomfortable. It is not okay to attempt to force a powerless person to participate in an elaborate humiliation ritual in order to maintain your sense of comfort. And that's all I have to say about it, to be honest. All I have is a point to make. And I've made my point. So, let's collect these bones. And let's get going. Because we're burning daylight, as they say. And through this challenging scenario, this collection of toxic Tims and toxic Tinas We have exactly. We have obtained exactly that which we need for the road and the journey ahead. One does not kill dragons. One overcomes dragons. And what happens after that point is entirely up to how far the dragon chooses to thrash. But it just needs the pan washed. Seems like an achievable goal. I just wash the pan. And if it's going to be an elaborate humiliation ritual, then by gum, it shall be a consensual because, like, I have the maid outfit and everything. Come on. You can tell. I'm into it. I'm into it. I'm into it. But, like, let's talk about it. You know? Like adults. You know, I'm not your mom. I'm your maid. If that's what you want. Ooh, okay, this might not be a house tree sort of situation. Are polar bears, like, aggressive unless provoked? I don't know. Anyway, better steer clear, because I know IRL polar bears are pretty serious creatures, so it's not. Just let sleeping dogs lie, you know? And let wakeful cats speak the truth. Hello, hello. Oh, it's a good fluffy guy. Okay, it's a good fluffy guy. It's not growling. Okay, then I'm fine. So ice spikes biome. That is tempting, but I would need. I think I need. Don't I need Silk Touch in order to harvest those ice blocks? Feel free to scream profanities in the comments in all capital letters, you know. Feel free to lash out violently, you know. Feel free to lash out in general, non-violently, passive-aggressively, in whatever, you know, manner you would like. Because I think it's funny, and I think it's cute. harmless as house trees. You know? What are the real barriers to implementing this in real life? Simply those with ownership of the land, right? Why would that be such a threat to the established order of things? Why? Oh, why? Could it be that it is because the established order of things is not about outcomes? It is not about the material. It is about submission. And it is about control. Because if you connect trees together and you live within them, the structure changes over time. It is not under your control, but it is capable of satisfying your needs for warmth and safety. It simply has a personality. That, dear viewers, is all that need be embraced in order to live in compost crop future, in order to live in house tree world. To accept non-control instead of control. To surrender. For we are all those lashing dragons, and we are all the hero who must overcome those lashing dragons. And through overcoming them, to achieve peace within oneself and in the world. And that is the journey of there we go. My narrative. So we're just gonna do the exact same thing again. Just a little space. But yes, these cold wastes do not seem like a path to mangroves. I agree. The way is not obvious, but the path is clear. Now what does that mean? Boy. Just like, figure it out, you know? You would know what it meant if you were like smart and cool. Great. And I think it's time to go and cook some potatoes. Because as it so happens, I actually have such ability. But I must be careful that when things work out in my favor and I have the ability to help someone for whom that power may not exist, and then I use it to help. I do not consider it optional. And that may simply be what is truly wrong with me. But if that is all that's wrong with me, I am willing to accept it for what it is. Now, I still want enough potatoes to plant. Okay, what did I miss? Some potatoes got cooked. Do we have some charcoal? Do we need to surrender some stuff? Maybe. And I do have some extra pine trees, so I may as well mark out this little area a little bit more clearly. Now I'm a little curious what is allowing that string to not be burned by the sun. It's got what I think is a copper helmet on. 3 trees, right? 3 trees should make it obvious. 3 trees and an arrow pointing home, and a torch on the hill. And a torch from this direction. So it should be pretty unmistakable, but we'll see. I'm more than capable of mistaking it. I know this about myself. You know, I often do get confused. It's true. But I know what I know. And when I know what I know, I don't doubt myself. I have been looking for sand for quite some time, so this is a good hill for sand. But I do have a suspicion that if I go out across this ice, there's a chance I run into an ocean, and from an ocean, there's a much better chance, in my opinion, of finding mangrove. Not to say that this environment isn't extremely interesting. It is. I do want to melt. I do want to melt. Build something out of ice. Build something entirely out of ice. I mean, that can be interesting. And what I'm craving is a mangrove. I could really go for a juicy mangrove right now. Thick, juicy mangrove swamp, as they say. Power and control, submission. Were you made to do it? Or are you simply the maid that stepped up? The cat girl maid of your dreams? Nightmares? Who can say? Who indeed? I suppose. Sometimes. It's all a matter of perspective. extensive. Quite extensive. Because one of the things I've always kind of suspected is that they've been trying to make it so that certain types of biomes don't end up repeating themselves in enormous clusters, so you don't end up with a situation like this where you keep going through ice and then icebergs and then ice towers. Maybe I should have stayed in the ice towers area. I mean, I can always get back there now that I know where it is, but it is before I get the portal network set up. Let's just try swimming. This is cool. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I feel like this is probably the direction to go. Well, there are no guarantees. This is reminding me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the very start of the first episode. And they're fishing. Sokka and Katara are just arguing, being their sort of bratty selves to each other. And I think Katara uses waterbending to catch a fish. Sokka doesn't have that ability. And that comes up a lot throughout the show. Sokka never has, those special powers. And I think the show does a good job of trying to show where his strengths come into play and what he's able to do. He's an incredibly clever strategist. He's an inventor. There's no reason to think, though, that he wouldn't have his life improved bending, right? If he could water bend or bend easily, he wouldn't have to figure out the mechanical effects of it. But he's the one opening doors to what happens in Season 2. Where we see more steam power, more forms of electricity, applications of metal. That which may seem, on the surface, to be an inability often leads to a requirement to gain certain skills, and that is a powerful ability. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That's not true. Sometimes what doesn't kill us makes us literally, physically, mentally, emotionally weaker. Sometimes what doesn't kill us levels of harm. But sometimes those challenges, those struggles, those things which we're not able to do for ourselves force us into situations of finding another approach, finding another way to do things. Certain skills. Which we would not have if we had not been faced with those challenges. So in this way, I believe that everyone and their struggles have a role to play. shit. Everything happens for a reason. I agree. I think that's just true. Now, someone who doesn't have the physical to take care of certain house chores must learn very how to navigate people and how to convince people of certain things. And sometimes, when those people seem to be possible to convince through powerlessness, it can go to a very dark place. But just because a certain power, or lens, or skill can be used in an evil way, does not mean that that is the only option. Okay, come on. You are such a fun... No, that was a little irritating, I'll admit. But did it lead to, growth, greater understanding? More abilities? No, not really. Just cost me health and some of my few remaining potatoes, to be totally honest. Potatoes were meant to be eaten. That is the purpose of them. Just to generate moths in your cabinets. So I'm going to collect potatoes. There's an opportunity. We share a common dream. We both want the planets to take over. I have the vision. And you have the vision. Reason. Saving the world and making a planet and covering the world in glory. I think that was my goal in the beginning. And I'm not joking. I'm joking. eldritch horror? Am I a multi-dimensional entity with dark powers? Why would you ask such a strange question, dear viewer? That doesn't seem like the kind of question that a sane person would ask. But I gotta think of the old adage. You attract what you are. God speeds thee, Black Emperor. Probationary Commonwealth. Or an island. There's a Jules Verne novel called The Mysterious Island. It's interesting. I mean, it's Jules Verne at what I would argue is his most basic. It's like an engineer and a few people with a couple of different professions. I forget. The only one I remember is the engineer, and the whole story is basically built around showing off how cool this engineer is and how capable he is. He's able to sort of rebuild middle, some sort of Victorian era technology just from the ground up on this empty island. One of the things that shows like how smart he is he puts his hand in a hot springs and he's like, oh, it must be about 37 degrees. And everyone's like, how do you know so precisely? And he says, well, it feels about like my body temperature, which is about 37 degrees. And everybody's like, oh, you're so cool. And they learn how to smelt, or they smelt iron with his abilities, and they dig a cave into a cliff face, and they build a ladder that connects it to the sea. And so they live on the face of a cliff facing the sea. And I think at some point they actually see the Nautilus, the ship from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but they don't understand what it is. Either that or they actually end up getting whisked away and saved by Captain Nemo at the end. But that question, is it a continent or an island, comes up in that book. And I have to remember the answer to that question has a lot to do with perspective. Every continent in a world with smaller oceans than ours, every ocean would be a lake. And every world, every planet is an island in an ocean of the sea. In the ocean of space. So where are the continents? Black holes. They have some unusual properties. Getting absorbed into a black hole would mean getting smushed to an infinitely narrow surface. It's infinitely narrow around an infinitesimally small sphere. It's still an infinitely wide surface. Right? To those inhabiting that surface, it would look like a flat, endless plane with no curvature. Now, why is that, right? It's not, okay? I'm just, you know, I'm just being silly. I'm just spitballing here, okay? I'm just spitballing, you know? I'm just balling spit. I'm just making spit into spherical objects. You know? For, after all, what is the purpose of life but to spit? And see what sticks. It's time. Oh no. Well, I've run too low on food to really run. I've got some mossy cobble, so what I might do is initiate the old 2, 3. You see, running is a lot easier in Minecraft. In real life, it's pretty difficult to escape an assailant by simply digging a hole in the ground and breaking it out. We all have similar abilities. If you can dig, they can dig. There's more life than digging, ain't there? Ain't there? I hope. I really hope. Ain't there? That's what the male pollen producing spore is called. It's like ain't there. numerous gardening implements to accomplish my science. Dark empath, blah blah blah. Something something. Dark empath. It just reeks of something someone who really wants people to think they're cool would say. I'm dark and bad. Ooh. So sexy. Don't you think it's kind of hot when I'm a bully? No, I think it's kind of sad and pathetic. You can do it. You can heal. It's okay. Where you started isn't where you end up. It's about the journey, you know, to becoming, like it's in the B movie, you know? Scram, I think I have messed up setting up an infinite one. This individual zombie, or is it about maintaining access to my supply lines? Sun Tzu, The Art of War. You must protect your supply lines at all costs. I think there's more to it than that, but I don't remember. So, I'm just gonna have to extrapolate. I hear skeleton. Skeleton me. Skeleton itinerary. Oh, I need the door. That's uncomfortable. You know, because I really need a door is what I need, you know? When is a door ajar? You know? Oh. When is a jar door, hook door, or car hand? I hear you ask. You know, these are important questions. You know? Losers and haters might argue, but these are extremely important questions. Okay, so it doesn't look like we're ready for that, but we might be ready for some chests, some storage, right? I'm always ready for some chests, you know? I'm a fan. To be quite honest, I'm a fan. So, I don't think I'm alone in that. You know, I don't think I'm isolated in that. I don't think I'm particularly vulnerable in that. See, it's possible. Not to agree on everything. And still to work together. And for an alliance to form, there must be mutual respect. Lest one party fall to the will of the other. I think anybody who finds me intimidating is, frankly, disappointed. Because I'm like literally just silly. That's like 90% of it. It's like 90% of it. feathers and chicken and whatnot. That reminds me, I did leave some meat in one of those caches. You saw that. It was the wolf that did it, not me. But I can't unkill that sheep, you know? So. No, don't worry, I'm not... okay. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Nope, nope, nope. Enough of that. You stop that now. Alright, come on. Let's get out of the rain. I really can't eat that meat. Okay, but we can eat this. I have to make some room. I want these resources. Do I want that? Maybe. Do I want this? Maybe. Do I want this? Yes. Do I want some dirt? Yeah. Do I want acacia? Do I want spruce? Do I want cherry saplings? Yes to all three. Do I want my buckets consolidated? Do I want this? Yes. Do I want the bow? Yes. But I do want to consolidate them. Do I want the steel pickaxe? Yes. Do I want the wood? Yes. Do I want the cobble? Yes. Bamboo into this? Yes, yes. And then the other question is, do I have enough potatoes to kind of carry through on my bows? Let's consolidate the bows. Let's find out. But first, we're going to have to deal with this problem. That was quite a bit of damage. You've made it this far, and there is nothing you can't handle. Another thing to check, which is I have bone meal, potatoes have it. The question then becomes, how many potatoes can we achieve in a short time? And also, where are the rest of the potatoes? I definitely planted them. Did I plant them and then cook all of the potatoes that I had? That would be silly. I would never do something silly. Oh no. Oh no. Oh. Yeah. Nope. I wouldn't do that. Okay. Well. That's... Yes, then the question becomes, do I need extra materials for bed? Or maybe I should have my shears out and simply shear the black sheep. If I can find it again. There it is. It wasn't even hard. You know what else wasn't even hard? I can't think of an example. That's interesting. That is very interesting. But yes, without my potatoes, my access to food is going to be difficult. So, if I'm to regain my potato powers post haste. What? What? Oh. Can be a niece. That's what you call it when there are small bunnies in Swedish. Swedish cultural authority has published a statement to that fact. It reads, and I quote, "These are the little bunnies." It is okay for me to say that. Why? Because personally, I think that it is funny. Can hold a mixed stack of items. What does that mean? Oh! Well, is that not extremely useful? I'm very glad that I found that. Can I put my redstone in there? Sure, okay, why not? Cool, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to look up the crafting recipe for that, because I'm not going without those. No. That is now an essential item. I am extremely happy that that exists. Now the question is it like, No. Oh, what was that one? It was like RuneScape. Bundles in bundles, essentially. There's some leather armor, that'll help if I run into other snow places. Looting. Let's see if there's some trading useful. We get clay bricks, we can give out clay, we can give up stone for emeralds, that's nice. Potential option, potential potato-tion. What's this? There's some apples, there's some flutters, there's some feathers. We can put this in the bundle, we can put this in the bundle, you know, we can put this in the bundle. There's bundled. There's bundled to be had. Bing bong. Bing bong bong. Sadly, no emerald molds, but, you know, I haven't checked everything yet. No diamonds. But I have not checked everything. Well, that's nice. There's some this, there's some that. There's some this, there's another bundle. We did that. Put that there. We could probably throw some stuff in this bundle. So we probably keep armor in this bundle and saplings in the other. Oh, boots are that just fills the bundle. How do I retrieve the bundle? How do I retrieve the bundle boots? The bundle boots are retrieved by the clicking of the right. And there's black wool and obsidian, and I mixed them up. Oh no. That bundle can't handle any more bundling. Well, let's try this. I think that. I don't know. And this. Wonder. Can you handle wonder? Stick. Okay. I think I'm just accepting for what it is. But we have got a lot of iron. So we might as well sleep it off and then continue in the morning. I would really like to end this on a positive note. A positive note. Can't think of a pun. I need to think about a funny way to explain that very basic word. And upset the blacksmith. You know? I am very sorry, sir. I forgot that it was my job to make sure that you personally are not offended. You know? And you're comfortable. Because great art should never make anyone uncomfortable ever, or deeply held beliefs regardless of whether they're necessary or not. And the other thing that I can actually get while I'm here is most likely they will have some sort of potato energy. Some sort of potato energy which I can access and transmute into potato patterns. Perhaps even poison potatoes. Perhaps even venomous potatoes. If I am so as to encounter such a thing. Okay, so it can only hold a stack. That's good to know. Now I think I understand how this works. Sick. Poison potatoes is the deal. This day. Oh, I got 2 poison potatoes. This day could get better. biomes are rare in the grand scheme of things. I also don't think jungle biomes are rare in the grand scheme of things. We've been disproportionately encountering pine and cold biomes. Don't really know what to do about that. Don't really know what to do about that at all. But I can share as many sheep as I possibly can when the opportunity presents itself. Hey, I know what that is. What is that? I see a forest. That's a very tall oak tree on the reticle, I think. It may just be opening up to something, but I know that we have access now through this to some things we did not have before. Potentially new sorts of creatures, new plant types. Do we start here? This could be a nice little place. I like it. Let's do that. Did I remember to bring my wood? Doesn't look like it. Okay. What can we do about that? We can go full bundle mode. So one of the things I'm going to need is I'm going to need that feather and the copper, maybe the stick. I don't remember. I think the stick is also a requirement. So let's get ourselves into a sticky situation here. There's a sticky situation if our grass is that, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that. And this and that, and that. Like, brush. This thing. Right? Almost. Okay, so remember when I put a feather there? I thought that was pretty cool that I did that. I remember doing that. Wasn't that the configuration? No, it was upside down. You can't make any item upside down. You have to, it's like when you're building a shovel, you have to build it upside down. Or right side up. Anyway, I can't mess with that for too long. That's what I need right now is storage space. Big Fox fan. Not foxes, specifically not foxes, but foxes? Big fan of foxes. There's one other thing I want to achieve is to put my tree types, as many as I can. Excellent point. Do we leave that? Do we bring it? I don't know. This is hard. This is hard decision times. I think I'd like to leave it. I'm gonna bring in these potatoes. So I have potatoes. Poison potato root. So I'm gonna leave. Do I have that brush? Potatoes get left, brush gets kept. I don't know how to identify whether a piece of gravel is weird or not. Suspicious gravel, I think that's what it's called. I'll play around with it, but probably when I come back to this location. Right now, I might be getting a bit too far ahead of myself, but I do want to explore what's down at the bottom. I have enough resources to go for kind of one more day of travel and kind of see where I can get with that. So I'm just gonna bet on it working out. Yeah. Once you get to the mangrove, I mean, there's always going to be different food sources, but as long as I have my potatoes, you know, I feel like that's a good place to start. Get up on this mountain, I can get a better view. I can see more things. And if I can see more things, then something could happen. I don't know what. But it could be something good. So let's try this. Disregard the frame rate momentarily. For the sake of seeking a higher truth. Oh, look, one of my cherry trees already grew. I like it. Donkey! What are you doing outside of my swamp? Get out onto the water. We can try again on them. Mangrove Acquisition Front. And the math. And they said in school that math would come in handy. How wrong they were. How wrong and silly. And also gay. I can say it. It's okay for me to say it. Why? You'll never guess. Place. Come on. Grow up. Grow up. Vote. generation. Well, I'm gonna have to get some fortune. But I've got some levels here. I've got some levels to work with. And my mad scientist days are far from over. Brasserie! 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 Yeah, that's how they say it. In France, where everybody speaks in that kind of irritating register. That's actually what the French language is, believe it or not. I know you're very likely to believe it, but it's true. Okay, so there's a couple things. We're gonna need at least 4 planks to do all of this. So let's get it done. With that, we found a new biome. We have some new things to achieve. We have achieved even greater insight into the depths of madness that define my mind. POV. I'm glad you. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support me on Patreon to witness the growth. To witness my growth. What sort of growth? I hear you ask. Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to find out? And as always, no matter who you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter what your situation in life, it is always Tuesday. And have a great day.